Hello everyone, I am the Weather Dude, welcome back, and today we're going to be talking about our next major snowstorm that's going to be rolling across the eastern half of the United States with the potential for heavy snowfall in some areas, and in some areas the first big snowfall of the season. So of course be sure to stay tuned, you don't want to click away for this video, and of course don't forget to like and subscribe. And we're going to hop right into it here, starting off with our North Atlantic Oscillation Index, because these teleconnections could give us a great idea of the weather that we could be seeing coming up across the United States. So taking a look at the North Atlantic Oscillation here, you can see it's certainly been on a little bit of a downtrend here over the last couple of weeks, ever since like the beginning of November, right? And that negative index has allowed for some more cold air to kind of dive across the north central and the northeast, or at least you're going to start to see that coming up, because usually when it kind of gets into a little trough, as you're going to see coming up here, that's where we're going to be starting to see those snowstorms, like the one we're going to be talking about in this video. If we look at the PNA, now in the PNA, right, basically a positive PNA means the same as a negative NAO. These are the two I like to look at the most. The PNA right now is kind of hovering around flat. It could go down and then kind of start to come back up, so it's kind of staying flat at the moment, really kind of hovering around the neutral. But definitely the NAO is definitely the one that was showing a big drop, and that I think is one of the reasons behind this upcoming snowstorm here. So let's take a look at the Climate Prediction Center real quick before we get into the models, just to show you the temperature outlook for the next 6 to 10 days. And you can see across the mid-Atlantic, southeast, we could be seeing some cooler air, maybe across the northern tier as well. We can see some warmer air there. And then of course in the west coast as well, we can see some warmer air. But the southeast and the mid-Atlantic is where you can see that colder air, and I think that's where we're going to see some of these cold plunges like we were talking about with that NAO pattern. How about precipitation? Well, northeast, looking like some above average precipitation, at least between the 21st and the 25th of November. While parts of the south kind of staying a little bit drier, at least in the short term, and then the northwest staying a little bit on the wet side. So what that tells me is that we could be maybe seeing a storm track kind of coming up like this, maybe like a northern storm track that kind of comes up maybe over the northwest, and then maybe we see a storm form and move over to the northeast, right? So we're going to kind of be seeing that in the short term, so this outlook definitely looks pretty accurate. And again, I will be talking about that in this video coming up right now. So let's take a look at the GFS real quick. We're going to take a look at the GFS, Euro, and Canadian models, the big three global models. We can't look into any high resolution models yet because we're not, that has to be really short term for that, because this is still kind of several days out. But we're going to take a look at the GFS just to show you where the storm is going to, like the general formation of it, right? So we have this big trough here that's kind of moving across the United States, or hopefully you can see the line I drew. But there's going to be a big trough kind of digging in, in the upper levels. And that's going to allow this big upper level low with a lot of upper level cold air to kind of move from the north central all the way across to the northeast. And there will be a surface low that will also be associated with that. And that's going to allow, again, with that colder air coming in, it's also going to allow, because the colder air is there in the upper levels, it's going to allow for some snow to form in some areas in the upper levels. And then in areas where the surface air is cold enough, that's where we could see some of that snow. So that's kind of the general formation here. You can really see the trough digging down, and it's going to allow for some Gulf of Mexico moisture from the tropical storm down there. I believe Sarah's the name. That's currently in the Gulf of Mexico. So it's going to draw some moisture up from that, right? So that's why we could potentially see some severe weather, maybe some, a lot of enhanced rainfall in parts of the south central, and you guys definitely need it because much of the U.S. has been dry. Okay, so that's just kind of the outlook, kind of like what we're going to be dealing with here. Just want to give you guys kind of a quick, simple breakdown of that. Let's get into the models now. So we're going to talk about here on the GFS first. So here you can see low pressure, right, kind of rises up through northern plains, a little bit of snow, but then another one forms to the south, and that's going to be the one that can spawn in some snowfall. So here we go, okay? Right here, low pressure rises up to the north. We get a little bit of snowfall, but then a second one forms with that cold plunge behind it. You can really tell by those blue lines, right? Because that one is going to form right on in the front hinges, if you want to call it that, the front hinges of the jet stream. And that's going to really, that's this low pressure, right? It's a strong one here, but then it's going to kind of spawn its little brother, if you will. And that's going to bring in the cold air behind it. And that's where you can see across the Ohio Valley. You could even see some heavier snowfall out of this, and maybe even for the Northeast and New England as well. So definitely something to keep an eye on here. In terms of the timeline, this is most likely going to hit, at least in northern central, probably around the 19th or 20th, so Tuesday and Wednesday. And then later in the week, Thursday, Friday, for a place like the Ohio Valley and the Northeast, maybe even into the weekend for the Northeast, and maybe even a coastal low as well. We got to watch this. All right, maybe it could even phase into a coastal low. So big opportunities here to watch with this snowstorm. And again, this is about a week out or so, so this isn't like a this isn't like speculation. I mean, this is something that the models are currently looking at right now. So definitely something to keep our eyes on. How much snow is the GFS predicting? Well, across the northern tier, at least like North Dakota, Minnesota, not all that much, maybe a few inches in northern part of each state. But in terms of the Ohio Valley, I mean, the GFS so far is putting out as much as 6 to 12 inches of snow. I was almost going to say rain because I'm so used to talking about rain all summer. But from Illinois to Indiana to Ohio, we could see, again, 6 to 12 inches of snow. And even the mountains of West Virginia, now I think this is a little bit bullish because their GFS is talking about 2 feet plus. Again, I think it's a little bullish, but we will definitely wait and see how it plays out. But even, maybe 6 to 12 inches in some of the mountains there across the northern New England. So from New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, right? And that's normal. But, for 6 to 12 inches to come into the Ohio Valley already, I mean, not unheard of, but, it's the first, I feel like it's the first time we're talking about a big snow event that's not impacting just the mountainous regions. So I feel like this could be like the first big snowfall for a lot of cities potentially. For example, Chicago, Indianapolis, even like Cincinnati, Columbus. So definitely something to keep our eyes on here. And we're going to take a look at our next model, the European model. And again, northern low pulls up to the north, and then we have that second low there. I'm going to let it replay one more time. So again, first low comes up, it spawns its second low pressure, which is a lot stronger. It can draw down more cold air. And again, over Indiana, Ohio, we could be seeing some of that snowfall. So the models are in pretty good agreement here, both on what's going to happen and even the time as well. I mean, look how similar these two are, the two models, right? We have the first low, right? Again, right here, the second low, and it even does like the GFS did, and maybe even spawns a third low off the coast and maybe hooks inward. So definitely some model agreement here. That's certainly a good sign as of what's to come next. All right, so that's something we're going to be looking for here. European model, how much snowfall are we talking? Not as bullish as the GFS, depending on what area you live in. It's a more concentrated area of 6 to 12 inches, more over eastern Indiana and western Ohio, right? But there's still the amount is still similar to what the GFS was saying. I think they're a lot more realistic, maybe 6 to 10 inches for eastern West Virginia. I think that's a little bit more realistic in my opinion. But a lot lighter snow though for New England, right? So maybe New England doesn't get as much snowfall according to the European model. But still, heavy amounts of snowfall, I would say at least moderate, for states like Indiana, Ohio, even Kentucky gets some light snowfall out of this as well. Maybe the Smoky Mountains in North Carolina. Also, they're a little bit more bullish on the Dakotas. Maybe South Dakota gets a little bit of snow out of this as well, not just North Dakota. So that's the European model here. We're going to take a look now at the Canadian model. Again, northern low, second low, and maybe even a little bit of a third coastal low there. Right, so you can see the low comes up here for Tuesday and the Wednesday, a little bit of snow, or I should say a good amount of snow for the Ohio Valley, and eventually moves into the Northeast. So let it play one more time. There's the first round, there's the second round, and then there's the third round coming into the New England states. All right, so again, all three of these global models here are in pretty good alignment. That's impressive considering, again, this event is about 5 to 7 days out, depending on where you live. But these, I'm going to kind of leave that there, so you can kind of see the zones are going to be impacted. Again, North Central, Ohio Valley, and then Northeast New England kind of happen in that order. All right, but a pretty strong low pressure system it's going to be. They all seem to agree on the strength as well. We're talking a low pressure strength that could get as low as 980 millibars, which is pretty strong, right? And there's no direct conversion from millibars of pressure to wind in miles per hour. But generally speaking, I mean, this is the low pressure strength that, we could see from a Category 1 hurricane. Now, does that mean, again, winds are going to be 60, 70 miles per hour? No, but we could definitely get some very strong winds, especially once the cold air comes in behind it. And I'm going to clear this, let this play one more time so I can show you the blue. Pay attention to the blue dotted lines here. This is the cold surge we're talking about. It gets all the way down to, the coast of the mid-Atlantic coast, North Carolina. It gets all the way down there, right? So there's that plunge of those blue lines. And that means we could see some colder air come in that is cold enough for snow. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to snow everywhere where those blue lines are, but it does mean that the air that comes in behind it could be cold enough that we could see some snow. For example, maybe temperatures in the 20s and 30s. So I just wanted to point out the significance there of those blue dotted lines getting that far south. To wrap it up here, if we take a look at the snowfall accumulations with the Canadian model, now the other two models, the GFS and the Euro, had more, snowfall here, snowfall here, snowfall here, right? The Canadians a little bit different. They kind of have like a chain of snowfall. So they kind of have like a connected area, North Dakota, Minnesota. They even include Iowa, Wisconsin, Illinois, and then Indiana, Ohio, in the PA, West Virginia, and then up to the Northeast. So this is a more widespread swath of snowfall, and even they have a little bit of snowfall coming down to the mid-Atlantic. While possible, not exactly likely at the moment, just because, again, I think the ocean is still a little bit too warm here on the East Coast, so I feel like the ocean air is going to kind of influence your temperatures and make them a little higher. So the chances of snowfall getting to the coast, I still think it's a little early for that yet. However, I do think 6 to 12 inches for Indiana, Ohio, even in the Appalachians in West Virginia and PA is entirely possible. This model also has the 2 feet plus of snowfall in West Virginia. Again, I'm a little doubtful of that. I would say a foot is certainly possible. All right, but we're going to have to wait and see how this plays out. But again, New England as well, you could even see a good 6 to 12 inches of snowfall from this storm. So this is definitely a winter storm to watch. We'll see if the Weather Channel ever happens to name it. But again, 5 to 7 days out or so definitely be on the lookout for this major winter storm. We could see some good snowfall out of this one. So thank you guys so much for watching. I am the Weather Dude signing off till next time, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.